Today's story is The Last Night Shift. It was 2:37 a.m. when Adam felt the first sign that something was wrong. The supermarket was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerators and the flickering neon light outside. His shift had started at 10 p.m. like every night, but tonight felt different. There was a strange tension in the air, something heavy pressing down on his chest. Adam worked as a night cashier at Meadow Mart Superstore, a 24-hour supermarket on the edge of town. It was a boring job, but easy money. Most nights, the store was empty, except for a few drunk customers or late-night snack hunters. His only company was the CCTV screens behind the counter, showing different aisles of the store. But tonight, the store was empty. Completely empty. No customers, no deliveries, just Adam and something else. At 3:02 a.m., the automatic doors slid open, but no one entered. The cold night wind blew inside, making the plastic candy wrappers on the counter flutter. Adam frowned. He checked the security cameras, but there was no one there. The doors stayed open for exactly 30 seconds, then slid shut. A glitch? Maybe. Then a low beep came from the self-checkout machine. Please scan your items. Adam looked up. The screen was active. Someone had triggered it. He leaned over the counter, staring at the machine, but nothing. No items, no customers. Just the bright blue screen asking for a payment method. His stomach tightened. This wasn't normal. He sighed, grabbing his walkie-talkie. Hey, Alex, you seen this? The checkout's acting weird. Silence. Isa. Alex? Still no response. Alex was the store manager and always monitored the security system from his office upstairs. Even if he was asleep, he always replied. But now, only static came from the radio. Adam's fingers curled around the radio. Something was wrong. At 3:15 a.m., Adam checked the cameras again. The aisle 7 feed was glitching, the screen flickering with static. He stared at the distorted image. Yeah, and then he saw it. A tall, thin figure stood at the far end of the aisle. The camera quality wasn't great, but Adam could make out its long black coat and wide, expressionless face. The figure wasn't moving. Adam's heartbeat pounded in his ears. There was no way someone had entered the store without him seeing them. He looked at the front doors, still locked. He turned back to the screen. The figure was closer now. Still in aisle 7, still standing, but now its head was tilted slightly, as if it knew Adam was watching. Adam's breath hitched. He grabbed the store phone and dialed Alex's office. Ringing, click. A deep, distorted voice answered, "Leave." Then the line went dead. At 3:30 a.m., Adam forced himself to check Alex's office. The door was slightly open, a dim light coming from inside. He pushed it open, and his stomach dropped. Alex was there, but he wasn't alive. His lifeless body was slumped over the security monitors, his head tilted at an unnatural angle. The computer screens flickered, showing static and distorted images of the store. And in every single camera feed stood the same figure from aisle 7. But now it was in every aisle, watching, waiting. Adam stumbled back, his breath quick and shallow. He had to get out. Now. As Adam ran back to the main floor, the lights above started to flicker. The automatic doors, his only way out, were still locked. Then from behind him, Adam. He froze. The voice was low, unnatural, echoing around him. Slowly, he turned his head. The figure was standing just a few feet away, staring at him. Its skin was pale, almost translucent. Its eyes were sunken black voids, and its mouth was too wide, stretching unnaturally. Adam tried to move, but his legs wouldn't work. The figure tilted its head again, and then, with a slow, unnatural motion, it raised its bony hand, pointing directly at Adam. The store went completely dark. The next morning, when the early shift employees arrived, they found the supermarket completely normal. Everything was in place, except for two things. Alex's body was still in his office, and Adam was gone. The security footage, it showed Adam running in terror, and then suddenly disappearing. No one ever saw him again. Next story is The Mummy in the Night Shift. It was past midnight when the silence inside the museum became deafening. Noah adjusted his chair, staring at the security monitors in front of him. It was his third week working the night shift at the Westmore Museum, and he had already grown used to the eerie stillness of the exhibits. But tonight, something felt different. The museum was empty except for the ancient artifacts that had stood in their glass cases for centuries. Statues of forgotten gods loomed in the corners, their stone eyes staring into nothingness. The Egyptian exhibit, one of the museum's main attractions, occupied the farthest hall, where a newly acquired sarcophagus had been displayed just a few days ago. The museum director, Mr. Evans, had told Noah that it belonged to an unknown pharaoh, and experts were still deciphering the hieroglyphs on its surface. Noah wasn't superstitious, but there was something unsettling about the sarcophagus. Its lid was sculpted with the image of a man with hollow eyes, and the golden symbols etched into the sides seemed to glisten under the dim museum lights. At exactly 1:43 a.m., the temperature in the security room dropped. The small digital clock on Noah's desk flickered, the numbers distorting for a second before stabilizing. He frowned, rubbing his arms. Then a soft thump echoed through the halls. Noah's eyes snapped to the monitors. The camera feed from the Egyptian exhibit was glitching, lines of static distorting the view. But in the brief moments when the screen cleared, he noticed something that made his stomach tighten. The sarcophagus lid was slightly open. It had been sealed earlier that day. He was sure of it. A cold sweat formed on his forehead. He reached for his radio. "Mr. Evans, are you there?" Static. "Hello? Anyone?" More static. A strange noise crackled through the speakers. A whisper. It was faint, distant, like something speaking in an ancient tongue. Noah's hand froze over the controls. The whispering grew louder, an eerie chant filling the empty halls. Then, silence. Noah exhaled, forcing himself to stand. He had to check the exhibit. As he stepped into the dimly lit hallways, the air grew heavier. Each step echoed loudly against the marble floors. The Egyptian exhibit was just around the corner, past the towering statues of Anubis and Horus. The moment he entered the room, a shiver ran down his spine. The sarcophagus lid was completely off. Noah's breath hitched. The glass barrier that surrounded the display had shattered, shards glittering on the floor. The hieroglyphs on the sarcophagus seemed darker, as if freshly carved. Something had been inside that coffin, and now it was gone. A deep, raspy breath came from behind him. Noah spun around, his heart hammering against his ribs. At first, he saw nothing, just the dimly lit statues and empty corridors stretching into the darkness. Then, movement. A tall, thin figure emerged from the shadows. Its body was wrapped in ancient, tattered bandages, some torn away to reveal leathery, decayed skin beneath. Its eye sockets were hollow pits of darkness, but something shimmered deep inside them. Something alive. Noah took a step back. The creature moved unnaturally, its limbs bending at odd angles as it dragged itself forward. Its bandaged fingers twitched, reaching toward him. "No," Noah whispered. The mummy let out a low, guttural groan. Then it charged. Noah bolted. He sprinted past the artifacts, weaving between glass cases as the heavy footsteps of the creature pounded behind him. He could hear the rustling of the bandages, the creaking of ancient bones. He reached the security room, slamming the door shut and locking it. His breath came in ragged gasps as he grabbed his phone. No signal. The screens flickered again, the Egyptian exhibit's camera flashing between static and a horrifying sight. The mummy standing just outside the security room. It was staring at the door. The lights flickered. A deep voice, ancient and powerful, whispered through the radio. "You are not welcome." Noah's fingers trembled as he gripped the radio. "What do you want?" Silence. Then thump. The door shook. Noah stumbled back. Thump. A crack formed in the wood. The air grew impossibly cold. The museum walls seemed to pulse, the ancient symbols on the artifacts glowing faintly. The whispers returned, a chorus of voices speaking in a language long forgotten. Then the door burst open. Darkness swallowed the room. The next morning, when the museum staff arrived, everything seemed normal. Except for one thing. The security room was empty. The chair was overturned, the radio lying on the floor. The only sign that Noah had ever been there was the faint outline of a human handprint on the security monitor. And the sarcophagus? It was sealed shut again. But this time, there were fresh fingerprints on the inside of the lid. And that was today's story. But was it real, or just a trick of the mind? I'll leave that for you to decide. But remember, never walk alone in the dark, because something is always watching you. We'll be back soon with another terrifying tale. Until then, keep your lights on. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support keeps these stories alive and the nightmares coming. I'll leave that for you to decide. But remember, never walk alone in the dark, because something is always watching you. We'll be back soon with another terrifying tale. Until then, keep your lights on. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support keeps these stories alive and the nightmares coming.